Hi everyone, welcome to Belle's Books. I'm Carly and today I'm going to do my March wrap-up for you, which encompasses all of the readathons. So, before I get started, actually, firstly, apologies if you can hear some piano. Dan is downstairs playing Jurassic Park, which obviously is amazing, so I don't know why I'm apologising for that. But I wanted to mention a couple of birthday presents that I forgot to mention last time. And one of them are these earrings. Now, I'm not going to, you probably won't be able to see these very well, but these earrings are little book spines. This one is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and this one is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. These were made for me by my darling, darling friend Jenny, who is so creative. She made these. These are my two all-time favourite books, Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier and Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. And she made them for me, and they're just so amazing. I love them so much. Book earrings, they're fabulous. So thank you, Jenny. One of my best presents. Also, this necklace that my cousins Kelly and Hedge got for me, again, it's back to front. I don't know if you can see it. It says "Refugees Welcome," which I think is from a company called The Patriarchy, who do lots of necklaces like this. Me and my lovely cousin Kelly struggle with racist and xenophobic family members. So just by wearing these necklaces, gonna piss those family members off. So that's all kinds of fun. Anyway, on to the books. So all the readathons I was doing in March, the first one was the Finishathon. So that was in the first week of March. And I got through 2 books in the Finishathon. So books that I had already started that I needed to finish. That also counted for the Irish readathon, which was running throughout the whole of March. So let's start with that. So I finally finished Strange Hotel by Eimear McBride, which I think I'd started in February 2020. So I picked this up when it came out because I didn't even realise that Eimear McBride had published a new novel. It's very short. It took me a long while to read. That probably gives you an indication of how I got on with it. So this book is basically about a woman who is going from hotel to hotel, and we are reading her internal thoughts. So this is just her battling with her inner demons and trying to repress something, and you as the reader are trying to work out what that is. So it's an interesting concept. The language is different from her previous 2 novels. So where with A Girl is a Half-Formed Thing and The Lesser Bohemians, she wrote in fractured kind of pre-speech language, very stream of consciousness. This is more formal language. It's full sentences. So normal, kind of normally constructed language, but it's purely the internal thoughts of this one woman, our main protagonist. And that's why I struggled with it, I think, because there's no dialogue. There's very little about like scene setting. It's just descriptions of hotel rooms that she's moving in between. You don't know why she's going to all these hotel rooms, other than it seems to be she's retracing her steps from previous visits. And it's her kind of navigating what she's doing, but you as the reader don't have enough information to go off, so a lot of the time you feel a bit of a loss trying to work out what she's doing. And she's having these arguments with herself. It feels like something is bubbling up from her subconscious. Something that she's tried to repress is coming up, and she's fighting it the whole time, and you're just trying to work out what it is. And there's a lot of that, like, in a discussion going on, and I just felt like it didn't work for me because I just lost engagement with it. Like I said, I started reading this in February, didn't finish it till now, just because I wasn't that interested in it. It just didn't engage me. I didn't find it compelling, and it was only until like the last I don't know, 10-20 pages, when you get a little bit more of information about what's going on. Like, I mean, it's not really a spoiler, I won't say it anyway, but that I felt like it picked up right at the end, and I'm like, I wanted this, at the beginning. I wanted this in the middle. So a lot of it was just you're reading her argument with herself, and it just was a bit too boring for me. So I was really disappointed with this, because when I saw this come out, I had such high hopes. So really sad that I didn't like this one. And also, what is this cover about? Like, this is really lame, this cover. It's terrible. So yeah, not a great one. I finished, well actually, I started Don't Touch My Hair by Emma Dabiri a while ago, but because I started it a while ago, I decided to start again. So I just read the whole thing in March, and I'm so glad I did. My gosh, this book blew my mind, right? It's only small, but there is so much in here. It's so dense, but not in a difficult way to read. So it goes from, by turns, kind of semi-academic to colloquial language, which I really liked. And I spoke to Pauline over at Dancing Lawn about this book, because she also said that she found it so dense, as in there's a lot in here. There's a lot of information for you to process. So it lends itself to a slow and close reading, because there's just so much in here. Fascinating stuff, right? So essentially this book is about black hair, afro hair, and the history of it, and the cultural perception of it, and the way that racism and the legacy of colonialism is perpetuated through black hair, the way that we respond to black hair. So that is essentially what this book is about, but it has so much in here, and I learned so much about African cultures, African history, and there's things in here about African philosophy and temporality that is the first time I've come across it. Also, now I'm going to put some of the references to this into my PhD research, which is amazing. And the last chapter, which was about mathematics, right, which usually maths was my worst subject at school, so not interested in maths, but I found this so fascinating, because it was about how like African mathematicians were doing stuff, were doing complex calculations that also feeds into the way that Afro hair is styled, in terms of what's it called, fractals, I think, the way that that braiding is done on black hair, just like blew my mind. And it was it's so advanced that African scholars or African people were doing these calculations in their head before it was theorized by European scholars. So I'm just like, wow, this is so interesting. And I can't do this book justice. I just want everyone to read this. I think it's fascinating. It's more than just about hair. It's about the way that our whole world is structured, that is to do with institutionalized racism and the legacy of colonialism. And it's by turns heartbreaking and uplifting, because she talks about some terrible stuff in here, but there is an emphasis on what we can do to go forward to break that narrative. Also looking forward to her new book, which I have just ordered because it's only just come out. I think it's called What White People Can Do Next. My God, she's a fascinating writer. So pick this up. This is my recommendation of all time. Everyone should read this. It should be a set text for life. Pick it up. Okay. So 2 wins there for Finishathon and the Irish Readathon. One book I didn't finish in the Irish Readathon, but I really enjoyed and I'm going to carry on with, is Dracula. Right, so I had started this. I'd got about, 100 pages in. It's a beefy boy, this edition as well. And I'd kind of lost my way with it, because everyone knows the story of Dracula, right? So I'd read the part where Jonathan Harker goes to Dracula's castle, and it's his diary entries. And then when it had changed to the diaries of his girlfriend Mina and her letters between these other people, I kind of lost. I was like, oh, I'm not interested. But I really got back into it. So now I'm like halfway through, and I am loving this so much. So I didn't realise as well that this is a mixture of diary entries and letters between different people, and Van Helsing's made an appearance. You know, like when you're so familiar with the Dracula narrative, and you've seen umpteen adaptations and that, and when Van Helsing appeared in this, I was like, yes, I know this guy. I was so happy, and I'm just really enjoying the reading experience of this. So I'm kind of taking it slow and just reading a bit here and there outside of my other reading commitments, but I'm bloody loving it. It's just, I'm so glad I'm finally getting around to reading it. Amazing. Okay, so I shall carry on with Dracula. I didn't manage to finish it for Irish Readathon, but I didn't think I would do because it's massive. One that I was disappointed with and I DNF'd was Actress by Anne Enright. Shiny cover. So I picked this up because it is about a daughter reflecting on the life of her mother and their relationship. Her mother was a famous actress from Ireland. And I had high hopes for this, but I kind of lost my way with it because I just found it too boring. Like, maybe I didn't give it enough time. I don't know. Like, I read 62 pages, but I just had no inclination to pick it back up again. And it was going off on strange tangents about other characters. So this isn't a spoiler, but her mother, there is an instant in her mother's past where she shoots this guy in the foot. And then there's like a whole section about the dude and him and his career, and then he worked for this place and then he worked for this place. I'm like, I don't really care about this guy. I want to know about these two people, about the mother and the daughter. So I don't know, like, whether I should carry on with this, because I just put it down and then didn't want to pick it back up again. And, you know, DNF books if you're not enjoying them, but I still really struggle with DNFing. So if you have read this and you think it's good and you think I should persevere with it, tell me in the comments below, because I hate leaving books half finished, but also if I'm not enjoying it, I won't carry on with it. Right, okay, so that was the Irish Readathon. I think that was all I read for the Irish Readathon. Oh, I did start one audiobook at the end of the month. So right at the end, I started The Pull of the Stars by Emma Donoghue. I will insert a picture here. Editing Carly, remember to put a picture here. And I'm still listening to that. I will say I'm really enjoying it, but I've mentioned this before, but I'm very squeamish and I can't deal with descriptions of bodily stuff, particularly to do with pregnancy. And I don't know why I picked this book up, but I am enjoying it. But it's very detailed in the descriptions of very gross things and everything to do with pregnancy and delivering a baby and all the things that can go wrong. So a lot of the time I'm listening to this audiobook like this because there's a lot of hard stuff to listen to. But the central characters I adore and I really love them, and I want more of the central characters and less of the childbirth and stuff. Anyway, I'm going to carry on with that because linking my readathons here. Started it for the Irish Readathon, finishing it or kind of participated in it for Simon and Tom's book Spring BookHiBearNation, because it is a book with 5 words in the title, so I'm claiming that for another readathon. Anyway, I've only got about 2 hours left, so I should finish it very soon. Speaking of audiobooks, the other readathon that I did was the Stitch and Listen. Now I listened to the audiobook, which was a reread for me. Let me show you the book first. It was The King's General by Daphne du Maurier. I've read most of Daphne du Maurier's books. I'm a big fan. I love her work. Also, she's quite a problematic author, I think. And I remembered reading this years ago, and I loved it, but also I hated the 2 main characters. So this book is a historical fiction. It is set at the time of the Civil War, so we're 17th century in Cornwall. And the thing that I love so much about this book that I'd forgotten as well until I got to the postscript was all of the people in this book are based on real characters. So the thing that Daphne du Maurier does really well is research. She does research on her novels really well. So this is based on everything that happened in the Civil War in Cornwall. So our two main characters are Honor Harris, who is our protagonist, and it was marketed as like a historical romance. I don't like romance, and it's a weird ass romance, to be honest, because the guy that Honor is in love with, Richard Grenville, was the King's General in the West, and he was an absolute douche, right? A complete, well, we don't know this, but de Maurier has painted him as a complete arsehole, right? And it's just unfathomable how Honor is in love with him for all this time, because he's just a ding dong. Anyway, so that was weird, because the romance is maybe unbelievable. But the thing I love about it is just the history. I don't know much about the Civil War, but she goes into a lot of detail, and it's not boring. So she talks about specifically what happened in Cornwall with the Civil War, and the best thing about it is it's set in Menabily, which is the house that de Maurier lived in, and it incorporates the owners of the house, which is the Rashley family who own that house. They leased it to de Maurier when she lived there, because she kind of stumbled across it. I'm going into all these facts now. I just love de Maurier. She stumbled across Menabily. It was run down. She wanted to live in it. The Rashleys were like, all right, you can live in it. So she did it up. Like, she used her own money to do it up a little bit so she could live there. I mean, I've never seen it, but I've been to Cornwall many times, and I have tried to see this house, right? I made Dan we went on a really big walk round the Gribben Head to try and see the house. You can't see it from the path, which is why she liked it, because it was so hidden. And it is about the history of this house, because a fascinating fact about Menabily is that when some building work was done, they found a skeleton of a cavalier hid in a secret bricked up room in Menabily. And so in the postscript, she talks about all the characters all the real people that these characters are based on, and that particular finding in this house. So it's just it's a really good story. Okay, it's super fun, and the thing that I find problematic, right, is our main character right at the beginning, this isn't a spoiler, right at the beginning falls off her horse and has an accident, and then she's in a wheelchair for the rest of her life, and there is not great representation about that. Okay, so the way that she portrays our character, our protagonist, is just not good. But I still really enjoyed this book on a second read, because I did think maybe I wouldn't like it as much, but I still really enjoyed it, even though both the characters are like, oh, I just want to slap them. But I would highly recommend this, because I just love her writing. She's so good at writing about Cornwall and writing with atmosphere and putting you in that scene. It's very evocative. I just adore it. Right, so I finished the audiobook. I did not finish my stitching, right? Did terribly on my embroidery. This is all I did on my mushroom. Right, can you see? It's terrible because I'm not a sewer, but I just did 2 different coloured threads and I only did part of the stalk. So completely failed at the stitching part, did the listening part, just didn't do the stitching. Anyway, I am enjoying this, just taking my time and carrying on with it. My God. Right, so we'll carry on with that mushroom. It'll probably take me till, I don't know, 2025 to finish it, but we shall see. Right, what else have I got to talk to you about? Oh, okay, the last book that I finished in March was Summer by Ali Smith. I've talked about this before, but I was reading it again, partly for my PhD research and partly for the seasonal quartet read-along hosted by Sarah over at Hardcover Hearts. We finished this and it was a lovely, lovely discussion that we had about it, and I was very emotional at the end. And I remember being emotional when I first read this, and I was even more emotional when I read it again for the second time. So this book is probably the most plot heavy of the quartet, and we meet up with a lot of characters that we've met before from Autumn and Winter, and spring. So this novel essentially follows a new family, the Greenlaw family, who are Sasha and Robert, brother and sister. Sasha is a bit of a Greta Thunberg style eco-warrior, left-leaning liberal, and her brother is the complete opposite. He's an absolute toe rag. He's a Tory supporting, not very nice, not very nice guy. And so we follow their relationship. They come into contact with Art and Charlotte from Winter, and they all go on a road trip together, which at the time I thought, well, that's really convenient. What they just meet up and then all of a sudden go on a road trip with people they don't know. That happens in Ali Smith, all right? But they go on a road trip to meet Daniel from Autumn. And in the meantime, this book goes backwards and forwards in time, so it's not a linear narrative. We get memories from Daniel, from his life when he was interred in detainment camps before the Second World War. I think it was in the Isle of Wight and various other strange holiday camp locations in England. And essentially she's comparing that experience of being detained as the expression was enemy alien, to the current detainment camps that we have for asylum seekers and refugees in the UK, and just shining a light on the experience of that horrendous being locked up by the UK government, and just for being non-British, whatever that construction means. Anyway, so like I said, it's not plot driven, it's very much character driven, and I don't know whether I find this one the strongest. I probably do, because it wraps everything up, and at the end it's just like, I was so sad it was over. Again, there's a lot of themes in these books. She talks about time and memory and the way that we think about those things or don't think about those things, and borders, and the social construction of knowledge, and the way that we contain ourselves, and the way that we relate to each other, and the borders we put up between each other, and the way that we categorise each other. And there's just so much to say in here, and as usual, I can't articulate it properly. Anyway, needless to say, I adored this book, and yet again, I think everyone should go out and read Ali Smith. I would say with the seasonal quartet that it does make sense now to read them in order, because by the time you get to this book, it's really lovely when you meet all of those characters again, and you can go, oh yeah, I remember this character, and then you also trace links from that aren't particularly, like, they're not overtly expressed, but we had some light bulb moments in our discussion group where we were like, wait, this is linked back to this in Autumn, this is linked back to this in Winter, and these two characters are connected. And before, I hadn't seen that, so that was really lovely to experience that in a group read as well. So this was a joyous reading experience. I don't think I'd ever get bored of reading these books. Like, I only read Summer when it came out last summer, and reading it again was just so nice. I just want to read them all the time. Anyway, okay, right, so that is all of the books that I read in March, I think. So the ones that I'm carrying on with are Dracula and The Pull of the Stars by Emma Donoghue. Oh, also, I started reading Patsy for the spring book hibernation. I'm only, I don't know, like 50 pages in so far, so I'm going to carry on with that. I will talk about that when I have finished it, because this is my book club pick for, what month are we in? April. So I have 2 weeks to read this, and it's a bit of a chunky boy. So yes, those are all the books that I read in March. Talk to me in the comments below. Have you read any of them? What did you think? Are you going to read any of them? Should I persevere with Actress? I'm still on the fence about that. I don't know. And also, look at my earrings again, because they're so beautiful and I love them so much. All right, guys, I'm going to go now because I'm waffling. I will speak to you very soon in another video. Take care. Bye.